views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not reflect the views or endorsement of any entity. Nothing being said on this podcast should be considered as investment advice. Derek is affiliated with Collab Plus Currency and may hold positions in assets discussed in this episode. Always conduct your own research and consult with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
Let's go. Are we live?
Oh, yeah.
We're live. Mouse says we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 100 Proof. We've got quite the cast of characters today. You may know them. Familiar faces. First up is Sam, Punk9059, NFT Statistics, the man with the math. Sam, it's good to see you, my friend.
What's up, Derek? How's it going?
Good to see you, dude. We got Eli. Eli's traveling somewhere. Where Eli, what's the deal, dude? Where are you at right now?
Let's go. So I'm in Toronto, got back late last night. We were in New York City, Mao, Hayden, myself, filming for Curated. And what's crazy is the three of us were there yesterday. Now Mao and Hayden are in LA behind the boards for this. I'm
Amazing.
Here, but we're making it work.
The Proof team never sleeps. And before we jump into 100 Proofs content for today, Sam, I know you've got a couple of things you want to call out super quick. Some of the content stuff that Proof is doing.
Yeah. So first of all, we say this every week, but follow Proof Podcasts at Proof Podcasts on Twitter. That's where we made that Twitter, so you don't have to hear any of my hot takes. You don't have to hear any proof of anything. All it shows you is when we release content. So check out that Twitter account. You get alerts when we do artist spotlights or 100 Proof or the daily countdown. We also have a couple videos that we're going to be launching soon. We're going to do a recap of the Pace Gallery event that Eli was involved in. That was a little while ago. And then we're also going to be doing an interview that I did last week with Ben Cohn, who's the founder of Killabears. So that's all stuff that's coming soon.
Love to see it. And let's jump in. Eli, you I'm watching from the outside, but it feels like there was an onslaught of news this week coming out of Proof. And there's partnerships, there's new drops, there's like these strategic deliverables that are now starting to get rolled out, and you're behind quite a few of them. Can you just walk through for us, like help me understand what's going on back there?
Yeah. So to your point, Derek, it's been a kind of crazy, busy last few weeks, but many of these things have been in the works for months. But it's so wild. I was looking over the course of the last week at some of the things we'd announced. And it was amazing that and I'll talk about it in just a moment, the Transient Labs Outliers program was 5 or 6 days ago. It felt like it had been, a month ago. So there's sort of two major keystone things here. Maybe I'll start with Proof Curated, which was a really exciting announcement we made this week. And, that really represents this opportunity to empower curators who are not myself, not Kevin, not anyone internally on the team, but really get more diverse voices in, diverse perspectives, so that, the blind spots we have, we're starting to ameliorate and work through and identify artists who really bring different dimensions to the table. So, we announced the first curator for that show is Emily Shee. We were in New York with her yesterday. You guys both know her. She's the best, incredibly thoughtful, an amazing artist, has an engineering background, but also an art history background. She's been such a great partner on this. And then it's also the first time we're working with Artblocks Engine, which, Derek, I know you're super pumped on. That's
huge
been
fan
great.
of the engine products. Oh, Eli, I think we lost your mic there, dude.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go.
Hello?
Yeah, we got you back.
This is the fun of doing it live. We get to figure it out on the fly. So yeah, having Artblocks Engine, Emily, and then also Venus Over Manhattan involved. And we, Derek, you and I had Adam on the show a couple weeks ago and had that conversation with him. And ultimately, we'll show these works in New York City in April. And then, perhaps most importantly, we have 10 amazing artists in that show, and combination of generative art, AI. But super excited for this. This is the start of, I think an entirely new vertical for us. And so when I think about this first instantiation of the curated product, incredibly thrilled with the way it's come together. And also, my expectation is if we execute effectively, this first release will be really meaningful over the long term, would be my hope.
Got it.
This
is cool.
That was a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me see if I got this. And I didn't realize all of the component parts until just now. But Emily Shi is curating. Some of the work is being launched on the work that's being curated. Some of it is launching on Artplex Engine through this proof exhibition. And the work itself will show live in New York at Venus over Manhattan, Adam Lindeman's gallery, sometime in April. Is that right?
That's right. And better than sometime, I can give you the specific dates, April 12th to 24th. So we've got 2 full weeks, which is pretty outstanding in that space.
Amazing.
With them as a partner. It's, again, we did this with Pace Gallery in a way as well, starting to bridge those worlds increasingly, and really be very selective about those partners who are helping us do some of that work. But thrilled to partner with Scott and Adam over there.
Yeah, those guys are awesome. I just realized that's the week of NFT NYC, so I think a bunch of folks will already be out there. I think you guys timed it right. Excited to go visit Adam and Scott over at Venus and see what you guys got cooking up here with the new curation product.
Great question. So
awesome.
when you say that it's aligned with Art Blocks, what is the role of Art Blocks? What are they actually doing behind the scenes here?
Yeah, good question, Sam. So as I alluded to, there are 10 artists. 5 of those are generative artists. And so in the past, when we've done things like Grails, where there was these series, so there were generative artists doing series of works, meaning 150 unique pieces, those were pre-curated. So the artist was handing off to us the finished files, the assets. In this case, we're using the Art Blocks rendering engine to actually generate those outputs on Mint. And so when you show up and engage with the curated product in this case, you'll participate in that generation. And so we're using Art Blocks to really help fuel that dimension. We have this unique use case where some of the works, more or less half of them, are being rendered on Mint through the Art Blocks engine. The other half are pre-curated AI outputs. And so Dave on our team has done some amazing work to make that all possible within this same minting pool. So lots of custom work on his end. Yeah.
What I love about this is it's, you're pulling in the greatest hits of folks. You're bringing in Emily on the curation side. This is all powered by Proof end to end. You've got Venus over Manhattan and their amazing gallery out there in New York. You've got the Art Blocks engine product that you're pulling in. You've got your tech team filling in some of the holes. So it's fun to watch these pieces across the industry get bundled together in this format, and excited to support. And it sounds like, am I reading this right? Like Emily's going to be giving guided tours live during those 2 weeks.
So there's a day where she's doing exclusive tours for Proof Collective folks. And that's the way that this will work generally, is that in the first minting window for this new product, Proof Collective have this exclusive minting window.
Sweet.
So excited for that. But let's jump into the Transient Lab Outliers program quickly. Derek, I know you have a pre-existing relationship with Transient. You know the folks there. They are amazing. Chris over there, the COO, and I have spent a bunch of time together. He's the best.
Yeah. And, Chris, Marco, Ben, these guys they're gigabrains, dude. They are brilliant technologists, designers, engineers. So I'm stoked to see you guys partnering with them.
Yeah, and just to quickly double click into that, Derek, Aaron, Harry, Dave on our side at the Proof team, they have an incredibly high bar in terms of our technical partners. And when they looked at the Transient Labs contracts and work, it was a no-brainer. Like, they gave the sign off right away, to your point. But yeah, this program is sort of another way for us to expand the way that we're doing a good service to the artists in this space. So we expect very little. This is all about us giving value to that first cohort of 15 artists or so through education, resources, tooling, and then ultimately help them sort of produce a work with some media support, some tooling at the very end. But sort of thrilled to get to play that role, explore what it means to have a bit of an accelerator dimension and
Yes.
dynamic in this space. It's an experiment, but we're also sort of resourcing around it to make sure that it's delivered successfully. Chris, on the transient side, has done this with Techstars. So, he has some
Yes.
experience as well. So yeah, thrilled about that. But
so is a good like a
we'll
good framing for this for people to like wrap their head around what this product is? Is it kind of like a Y Combinator Techstars like accelerator product for digital artists and digital art that's pushing creative and technical boundaries. And this is where the expertise of Proof and the expertise of Transient coming together to help accelerate these artists to create these boundary pushing outputs comes into play. And it's going to be 15 creators. It's going to be 6 weeks intensive, in the cut, working hard, figuring it out, working with your cohort to come up with some really cool bonkers stuff here that hopefully helps elevate the stories that are being told around these artists, their progression as artists working in blockchain, and some of the boundaries that are getting pushed over time with this new medium. So I'm personally very excited about this one and excited to see. I mean, the creators that are coming through this cohort are some fairly big names. You want to just like riff on that for a second?
Yeah, so that's spot on, Derek. So we have Jake Fried in this cohort, Tiffatron, Patrick Amadon, but also some platforms, which is kind of interesting. So Fellowship, who I think we'll talk about later, Ensemble, who Derek, and they announced I think their seed round today, which is which is kind of exciting. And you guys, I think you led that, didn't you?
We did lead that round. Yeah, we led Mac and the Ensemble product. They're awesome. They're our favorite Nebraska startup. I think they might be our only Nebraska startup. But yeah, Mac is great. Very excited about that. Let's go Nebraska. Yeah, excited about Ensemble.
And then also Botto. So, like an incredible mix of, really established artists, some platforms, and also some more emerging artists. But yeah, thrilled to kick that off.
Awesome. Cool. And then to round out kind of the big trifecta of news this week, you got Beeple in Brooklyn. What's going on there, dude?
Yeah, so Beeple in Brooklyn, like this is a sort of a way of making good in some respects on what we announced with the conference, right? Like I think people got really excited that Beeple was going to be there at the conference doing the live every day. And then he had his event, and I think people saw, they were either there or they saw images and videos from that event that felt really special. And so we thought, how can we bring dimensions of that to what we were doing in New York? So I'm a little light on details for exactly how the mechanics will work for who can come, how you sign up. But I think, the fundamental piece here is that 400 people in person at this event that will be very Beeple. What I mean by that is like the vibe, the experience will be very much informed by him. And then 10 of those people who are there live will win through a raffle a Beeple every day, which is kind of crazy. And then the remaining 90, because he does these in 100 batches, will go into our Diamond Nest exhibition that comes April 17th. So thrilled to get to partner with Beeple. He's the best.
Yeah, he's wild. That'll be fun. I'm excited for that one. Cool. Well, let's kick off story 2, dude. Ticketmaster, Disney. We've got a couple of things happening this last week. Do you wanna lead us through this one?
Yeah, I think Sam, you should jump in.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, these are kind of I guess you had two stories kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum here. The first is Ticketmaster, who has been under a lot of fire recently because of bots, and there's a famous Taylor Swift concert, and I don't know exactly what happened, but I know people were angry. And and they recently did a concert where only NFT holders got first access to the tickets. Surge pricing kicked in after, really kind of rewarded the NFT holders. Basically, Ticketmaster allowed it for artists and bands who have NFT kind of fan club type situations to leverage their NFTs in order to get discounted tickets or first dibs on certain tickets or tickets before a surge pricing mechanism kicked in. And I think it was pretty widely praised from what I saw. With the first one example of that. And then kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, Disney laid off a huge piece of their metaverse team. and really seem to be making a bit more of an exit from Web3, or maybe it's not an outright exit, but kind of taking steps backwards, similar to what we saw with Meta, Facebook, last week. So I think the idea here is just to have two kind of companies at different edges of the spectrum with regards to how they're interacting with Web3. Derek, what do you think? What do you think's the delta here when you're looking at the situation? What do you think works and what do you think doesn't work?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the first thing that comes to mind is one of well, I'll take a step back and just like add some color first, then I'll answer that question directly because it's such a good question. The color is just like the band that they partnered with was on the Ticketmaster side was Avenged Sevenfold, which has a large audience. They have a pretty diehard group of people that follow that band, buy their work, go to those shows. And if you held the artist NFT, in this case Avenged Sevenfold, then you got first access to tickets at 2 shows at Madison Square Garden and the Forum. And almost 20% of their fan club bought tickets using this new wallet integration with Ticketmaster, which was a pretty powerful proof of concept for a firm that has one of the largest distributive networks in the world around live performance and live shows. There was no wait times. I think fans widely praised the whole experience. They were able to pick off the best seats using like this proof of ownership and proof of fandom that exists on chain. Which to me, I think to get to your actual question, like why is that working and what's the delta there between this and something like Disney? This was a product that was directly related to the Ticketmaster business model. They were looking at Web3 rails to make something that already exists, something that has product market fit, more efficient using this new medium of technology. And I think what we're going to find with these corporates is, I think the early innings of this technology is finding the design space that actually accents or informs existing business models and makes them more efficient or unlocks new types of value for things that already exist. Whereas we turn to Disney and, hearing that they laid off their entire storytelling metaverse division, in my view, like spinning up a division like that at a large corporate is far more exploratory and like far more investigative than it is like trying to solve immediate concrete problems. And so I guess where I'm at is like, we're going to see different brands play with this technology in different ways. Some are going to be all in and trying to figure out the end-to-end value prop for how they can layer in this technology into it, like their core offerings. Others are going to kind of, pick around the technology a bit, do these little trials and tests that may be adjacent or orthogonal to how they deliver value. And they may find that things don't quite work. I think Instagram and their sale of NFTs is a great example of that, which is just like, it's not quite the core reason people use that social product. They're not looking to buy a digital good. They're looking to network and serve a different job to be done. And so it's not surprising to me when I see things like this Disney metaverse division not quite figure it out, or Instagram's NFT platform not quite figure it out. These things are adjacent to how these things deliver value. Whereas I look at Ticketmaster and I see this is their core product on steroids. They're figuring out ways to lean into this that helps inform the value that they're already providing their distribution network. So I think that's like the first concrete thing that comes to my mind, but I'd be curious to hear from you guys if that sounds right, or you guys would push back on any of that.
I wouldn't push back on any of it. I think there are a couple things jump to mind. The first is that Ticketmaster itself doesn't have NFTs, right? That I know of, but they're saying we are going to allow bands or groups or organizations that have figured this out to implement that in the way they sell tickets.
Yeah,
I think the hardest part of NFTs is to figure out how to kind of nurture your community, stay deeply involved in your community. And a lot of companies, I don't think, realize, like, first of all, like, there aren't a ton of people who are familiar with this technology. There aren't that many people who are out there buying and selling NFTs. So you got to either cater to that community or be very educational. And I think Ticketmaster here is saying, we're not going to do it, but if your band does, we're going to figure out how you can integrate that. Then you take a band that's connected to a younger generation that has probably been able to figure out how to infiltrate this community. They're the ones who are able to maintain it. That NFT is still trading at 0.15 ETH, so $250 to be part of this fan club or whatever. I think that's a big difference here. And I agree with you. We haven't seen a ton of utility NFTs work all that well. Like, I feel like the real massive elephant that has been proven out is collectibles. I mean, that is like, when I think of Bored Ape Yacht Club, when I think of Chromie Squiggles, when I think of DeGods, I'm thinking of collectibles, like, and kind of that membership pass a little bit. And that is just so incredibly difficult to maintain. I mean, we're seeing right now that teams that are devoted to this full time are struggling to keep people's interest. So for these exterior companies on the periphery, I think it's so hard. And I think, so I don't know. Those are a few of it can be done well. It's just such a massive commitment. And I think that those are a couple of things that jump to mind here.
Yeah. Eli, any hot takes here?
Yeah, that's funny. So I'm in the chat, and Blurman has a question. How does Ticketmaster stay relevant as tickets move to NFTs? Do either of you guys have thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say right now tickets presumably live on a database through Ticketmaster, except that database is controlled and operated by Ticketmaster. I think the question that Blurman is getting at is tickets are going to end up being these digital objects that don't live on Ticketmaster's database, but live on a public database. How does Ticketmaster stay relevant? And I would say my answer to that is, if Ticketmaster still has the relationships with every stadium in the world, if they still have the technology that allows people to purchase these tickets quickly, if they have the value add services after the concert is over that allows them to create value around somebody who went to a concert 6 years ago and allows the band that performed to be able to interact with them through the Ticketmaster portal and continue to deliver value and services through the Ticketmaster product, my view is it doesn't matter that the recording format for where the ticket lives has changed. One is going from a private database to a public database. As long as Ticketmaster is still able to command value, given like the end-to-end process of like buying, going, accessing, and then the life after the concert or the live performance, if they're able to deliver value in those concrete areas, given the fact that they have wide distribution, they're on the phones of virtually, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of devices. They have an ability to pivot nicely into this technology just by swapping the recording format for where these tickets live from private database to public database. Those are my early thoughts on how something like Ticketmaster survives.
Yeah, I think I don't fully know all about Ticketmaster's business, but there's always so much more to it than meets the eye. So much more work that goes on in the tech. I do think it is hard for blockchains to just replace these businesses, actually, because having a centralized team that is motivated by stock price and that's attending to all these different aspects of the business, including the relationships with the venues, and figuring out what to do in the case of fraud and how do you deal with scams. And Ticketmaster does take a bit of ownership for that. And I think these are aspects that I'll start worrying about this question when we see concrete examples, even in small form, of this starting to play out. I think when we're talking about use cases, like if this were an easy use case, I think we would see more proof of concept of it. What we've seen thus by now, and that doesn't mean it won't happen, but I'm not quite at the place yet where I'm saying this is a use case that's about to take over the Web 2 version, just because money's been poured into this. There are people who want to support it, and I just haven't seen a ton of examples of it actually playing out. I think what we saw here was more the NFT really just kind of really partnered quite well with Ticketmaster's business to give a demographic, a cohort, people who owned the digital objects priority. I think that's a little bit different, but that's just that's kind of more the Web 2 background in me saying that.
Yeah, good question though.
Yeah, so I hear OXDGB is in the YouTube chat. So
let's go DGB.
Let's go.
We like DGB.
We're all big fans. One more quick question from the chat. This is Datpunk, who Sam, I think you know. Have Disney announced anything regarding their existing NFTs? VV, Marvel stuff, Nat Geo. What happens to some of those, if anything, now, do you think?
That's a really good question. I actually don't know the answer to that. If they were issued and supported originally by this metaverse division, then they may have some effort in place to help bridge that to some other department in the future. But I just don't know enough about how those things were structured or what part of Disney those outputs would belong to. But I would expect them to, if they were part of this division that was really focused on these digital objects, I would expect them to be treated just like any other product line that Disney has, released in the past and then no longer supported, whether it's a trading card line or a stuffed animal line or a bouncy ball line with brands on it from Marvel that they just, usher out and they move on to the next project.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm seeing we've got a rundown, doc on the side here, a little behind the scenes, but I see that Disney sold 600K USD in VV NFTs last week. So I think to your point, Derek, maybe the sale of NFTs, maybe it doesn't change that materially, but some of that broader support infrastructure, architecture around what it means to release an NFT and how they support that effectively, maybe that goes away. But perhaps
it could also be, that you're bringing up something that's super interesting. It could also be that the issuer of those Disney NFTs entered into a licensing agreement with Disney. And so these were never supported by Disney's Metaverse division. These were supported by a third party who's licensing the trademarks from Disney and creating their own product line that extends the universe of Marvel or whatever IP they've licensed towards these digital objects. And if that's the case, then these things could continue to see support over time. It's just hard to know without recognizing like what the relationship is between the objects and Disney itself.
Yeah, and just quickly, I was reminded that so Bob Iger went back as CEO maybe 4 or 5 months ago, something to that effect, and back to Disney, I mean. And my understanding was that Iger was pretty bullish on NFTs and the metaverse. And so this is interesting because I think his predecessor was less so. And so it's sort of interesting to see, maybe despite some of his internal conviction about there being opportunity here, that as an org at the moment, they're scaling back, they're cutting back here.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. There's also public sentiment right now that some of these large corporates have to deal with. And, it may be the case as well. We just don't have access to the stuff that's going on internally, but it could be the case that these teams are continuing to persist, but publicly they're, the news about them is not like articulating as much. But it's totally possible that both Instagram and Facebook and Disney continue to have, small departments working at the edges of this technology, trying to figure out how to play in it without, the entire effort being, thrown out with the bathwater here, as it were.
I do think you also, we saw this with CNN last year. There's so many NFTs being created, and I just think people have to be careful with their ETH. I think if what you're buying is a collectible, maybe you think it's a Disney collectible. Does it rely on Disney? It probably does rely a little bit. Like, you always need someone out there kind of making people aware of the collectibles you own, unless it enters this really glorified era of things that have no external dependencies and just like are rare and celebrated. So if it's, I think if you're buying a collectible, you gotta really think about the entity that is putting it together and that is going to kind of usher this forward. Or if it's a utility NFT, like if it's a utility NFT and that utility goes away against the way things were promised, I think at that point it's the responsible thing to do for a company to refund it, because that is a bit of a violation of kind of the terms that someone bought it upon. But I think that is important though. And I think it's a reason that, you really want to invest your money, which you've earned, in people and projects that you think really have stay power, that are committed and not just kind of here for a short time. I have no idea, again, if this describes Disney or not, but it is a theme that we saw with CNN and now we're seeing it here. And I just think you got to be careful with your money. Yeah.
I'll say one last thing on this point, because it's a great one, Sam. Before we move on to the next topic, I tried to articulate this a bit in the piece that I wrote, but the spectrum of things that have product market fit that are digital objects. You mentioned one, no external dependencies. These are like store value objects, things that don't require a creator to continue to add value to them. We see this with art and things that launch on Grails or CryptoPunks or Art Blocks pieces, once the creator creates these things, there's no external dependency required for them to continue to push or provide value to the owners of these objects. And then on the other end of the spectrum, which is what you're describing, Sam, are things that do have external dependencies. These are things that look much more like products and services. These are the things that represent the trillions of dollars of GDP, that happen globally annually every year. And for many products and services, just like not even talking about blockchains, just general products and services, these outcomes of what job these products and services are meant to accomplish are often low impact, or they're not that valuable, or they naturally depreciate over time as the product or service is used. And so it's really important for people to come into this space with eyes wide open and really start to classify the digital objects that they're spending ETH with, because it can be tricky trying to parse through what exactly are these digital objects, what role do they mean to serve, and what can my expectations be after I buy this thing, because it can be difficult to know which collectible is something that has no external dependencies and which collectible is something that does have external dependencies, because it looks more like a product and service just in digital form. And so that classification, I think, should become more pervasive, and people should become more thoughtful about that over time.
Yeah, one thing I throw onto that is I think like what we saw last year was just a blow up in the value of the collectability of stuff, of the brands people wanted to be a part of. You wanted to be one I think of is CloneX. The floor got up to 20 ETH. We're seeing it, Azuki, we're at 13 ETH. Obviously we've, with Moonbirds, we've seen it go up and then come down. And that's because people have wanted to be part of these brands. And I think when I see something like CloneX, say all 20,000 holders are about to get a t-shirt, then you're starting to bring in this real world utility, which to your point, Derek, is very rarely worth the amount of money we're ascribing to collectability.
Yes.
And I think in some ways that actually hurts you when you start throwing in some, because it kind of shifts the brain away from this is something I own because it makes me feel good, because I want to be part of this, because I think this brand's going to expand and this is going to be a status symbol over time. And then you're like, oh, it's just a t-shirt that 20,000 people get. Like that's at a very different price point from what I was paying for a unique, rare, NFT.
Yeah.
And it's one of the interesting things that kind of goes in conflict with people saying, where's the utility? Where's it? Like sometimes if you actually start throwing in real world utility, it brings the collectability factor kind of down to earth in a weird way. I know it's a bit of
it moves it more on the spectrum. Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's some really strong insights there, Sam. Well, cool. Let's kick it to story 3. This one's going to be a fun one. We've had Frank on 100 Proof before. The dude is just a total monster on Twitter. Yuga and DeGods, they're moving from Solana this week. DeGods and Utes. Yeah, DeGods and Utes are moving to Solana this week. Utes is moving to Polygon, and it already moved, I think, 3 days ago. And DeGods, the bridge just opened up in the last 12 hours or so, and people are starting to bring them over. And Sam, I know tomorrow. You have been. It's tomorrow?
I think it's tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. But I think you've been tracking this closely, Sam, and it sounds like prices are starting to pick up on both collections. I don't know where we're currently at today, but maybe you can just provide some quick context on the story of Utes and DeGods, Frank as a founder, and what we're seeing in the last 24 to 48 hours.
Man, Dalton on our team is, I think, best positioned to talk about DeGods because he's been really following it. I do own one Ute. Let's get the bag out of the way. I bought a Ute about 2 months ago. Just because I'm so impressed with Frank and the community he's building. And, I think the way that this guy is resonating with a certain culture, which is a culture that is quite popular in NFTs, kind of that mid-20s, 30s demographic, definitely a male bias there. But this guy is just, he's just authentic and aggressive and energetic in a way that is working for people, and he's fearless, and he's omnipresent. But I think that I think you basically, you start out, I believe over a year ago, he tweeted today, they minted at something like 4 or 5 Solana. That meant something different then because Sol was in the hundreds then, so it wasn't like a super cheap NFT, but 4 or 5 Solana. Just tons of FUD around the mint. Different people didn't get him that didn't, the different people didn't get him that wanted him. They did the paper hand tax. I don't give the whole full word because I'm all about just keeping it close.
You're family friendly, Sam.
I'm family friendly. They did that, and it went really, really negatively. And then over time, they just found a way to find a bit more product market fit. And I'm not sure exactly what that conversion was, but what we see in NFTs, and this is one of the most interesting things about NFTs, is that as prices go up, they actually become more interesting to buy. You know, it's one of those things where that's when people start feeling like they're being left out, that they're missing something. And, you know, the word that they use is Veblen goods. Veblen goods is used to describe luxury products where they get more desirable, more viable as the price goes higher, and less desirable and less viable as the price goes lower. And I think like Frank just kind of got onto that wave, and this just became just a massively popular project. And it kind of got to the point where I said this was kind of the token project. Solana was a little bit more kind of lower price point NFTs. You know, people could afford to get in and just kind of rode this wave. And then he got doxxed, or he doxxed himself. And just the more you listen to this guy, I think the more he understands just kind of the intricacies of what works for NFTs, what doesn't, what's kind of sound bites that people use that don't reflect reality, and what does. I've just broadly been very impressed with the culture he's created. I just rambled a lot. I didn't even talk about what exactly happened.
Yeah. No, this is good stuff, dude. This is good stuff. I'd love to hear from Eli as well. I think to your point, Sam, something that he's done super, super duper well is, like, I think in the last 24 hours, Frank has been buying the collections of some of the most popular Ethereum projects. Eli, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can say something. I can't say that much about it, but I've seen Frank. I think he bought an ape. He certainly bought a moonbird. But this is just, again, him showing his adeptness at being and capturing attention and being sort of the focal point across many now communities on ETH, right, as they come over to ETH in a really interesting way. Can you guys see my screen at the moment?
We can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so like, you know, this, I think they tweeted this yesterday. I love this. Like, you know, I think in terms of framing, messaging, marketing, you know, most of the things we see from NFT projects are about announcements or drops. But this is like, to me, this feels more like a campaign. So let me just read this super quickly. So it's so dumb, all of it. We're spending fortunes on cartoon JPEGs. 99% of the world thinks we're delusional. Maybe they're right. Maybe the best days are behind us. Or maybe we're early to something incredible. Nobody actually knows, so might as well have fun while we're here. Come figure it out with us, DeGods. I think that's just so great. Like, to see a real campaign and messaging that's self-aware, self-effacing, but also aspirational and somewhat inspiring, I think is, again, Frank, that team probably now understanding how to communicate to this community so effectively. So I thought worth sharing that just for a moment.
Yeah, this is awesome. And I think,
it also
go ahead, Sam.
I'm sorry, it just speaks to what I was saying, right? Which is this idea, like, why do people buy NFTs? Why do people spend $30,000 or $100,000 for a Bored Ape? It's because they make them feel good. Because you feel good to be part of it. You feel like you're part of something, and when that you start part of something exclusive, you think it's going to be fun. Like that at the end of the day is what this PFP craze was all about. And like I said, the minute you started making about T-shirts, it's over, because it was never about T-shirts. It was about this is what makes you feel good and makes you feel like you're part of something unique and special. And he gets that, you know. And I think the other thing that's interesting is that they were on Solana, and he was just like, forget this. I'm not going to be 60% of Magic Eden's market share anymore. I'm not going to be the success story for the guys who couldn't afford the big NFTs. I'm going to be the biggest guy among the biggest players. I'm going to be the biggest fish in the biggest pond. That's what I want to be. And he's just kind of like that. He says, everything I'm going to do is something that people are going to disagree with. It's something that he says could break the internet. He wants us sitting around here talking about him for 20 minutes. And he does it quite effectively, right? And I think, so they're doing this thing that they're moving to Sol. And one of the very interesting things I thought was that they announced that Blur was their partner. They announced that this morning. And by partner, it just means kind of co-endorsement, right? They're doing a Spaces tomorrow. But I think that they're, you know, and it was really kind of on the back of that. Them saying, we're doing it tomorrow, you know, 0.33% royalties. So it's going to be low. Even every other project's at 0.5. He's going to be below them. And we're doing it with Blur. You know, I just thought that was super interesting. And the price has since gone from 600 to 850 in a day. You know, I think there really is this sentiment right now that people are going to start feeling like this project is like one of those. No one ever felt like you had to own a DeGod to be in the collectibles game on ETH, or I shouldn't even say on ETH, in the collectibles game outright. Like, I don't think DeGods was in that category, and now he's inserting himself there. And I think there are a lot of people who are like, on the one hand, there are a lot of people who are saying, well, wow, this I want to own one. OSF bought 5 this morning. I think there's also a bunch of DeGods holders who own 50 who are now going to be able to sell them for the first time ever, on Blur. So it'd be interesting to see the next couple of days. But I thought that was a cool move with Blur.
Quick question for you guys, and I agree largely with what both of you have described. I kind of just want to expand my own thinking about how you guys are seeing the vision and unfold around the project, or the 2 projects, Utes and DeGods, and the lessons that can be learned there. My big question that I want to ask you both is, are there strategic deliverables or component parts of what Frank has done, whether it's all the way down from things like incentivizing people to bridge their Utes over to Polygon within 48 hours and for the chance to win a Bitcoin DeGod, or his ability to capture attention by, buying projects from all of the top communities in the space on Ethereum and starting to build bridges to all of them, to his partnerships ability to, collaborate with Blur and set royalty standards and be part of the conversation in the meta around royalties, to, the being self-aware, that the tweet that Eli put up, his ability to recognize, the real emotional resonance that these projects should have outside of bringing value back in very specific utilitarian ways. I guess as you look at what Frank is doing across both Utes and DeGods, what are some things that you think you could take away or strategize around as it relates to Proof, or as it relates to Moonbirds, or as it relates to some of the way you guys think about accenting so much of the hard work around the products that you guys are building right now with some of the emotional captivity and resonance that Frank is doing? Do you guys have any early thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I can jump in for a moment. I think, and I was having a conversation this morning with someone to this effect. Probably too often, I'll sort of speak for myself in the way that we talk about things on the art side at Proof. It's a little too insider baseball, and the space is already small, and then in the nomenclature we're using and the way we're talking to our audience is some subset of that market participant pie as a whole in terms of NFT participants. That's problematic. And so the thing, the thread that I'm pulling on a little bit as I watch what Frank is doing is, what's the language, what's the form of communication that casts a much wider net. And, maybe that's about onboarding people who are not currently in the space, but it's also about resonating more broadly from an art perspective with those who don't consider themselves art collectors, don't know what generative art really means, have never minted generative art. When we say Proof curated, for us, that has there's some connection to Art Blocks curated and a curated platform, but for many that means nothing. And so to do more of that work and use different language, more highly visual communication, probably getting on spaces, doing some of that work, that I'm sort of learning certain things as I watch Frank execute across those dimensions.
Well said. Sam, what about you? Any big takeaways there?
I have so many. I think some of them are relevant to other projects like Proof, and some of them aren't. At some level. But, this guy, I probably shouldn't tell the story. When I first joined Uber, I met Travis Kalanick and asked if he had a girlfriend. He said, yeah, Uber's my girlfriend and everyone else is a mistress. And I think of that story. I think of that story when I think of Frank. I mean, Frank is, and I have no idea if he has a girlfriend.
He's married to the game.
Zero idea. He is married to the game. He is obsessed with DeGod. He lives and breathes these things. Bitcoin ordinals come out. He's like, immediately, okay, how can I make this work for me? He's just so deep and in the ground in a way that young founders, I think, are particularly good at. He's constantly on spaces. The other thing about him, and I think this is true for everybody, kind of with everything you do in life. So life advice from Sam, but also specifically in this NFT game, in the branding game, he's so authentic to himself. And that authenticity often is coming out there and saying, this is my weakness, like, and doing it in a way that just resonates. But not everybody can be Frank. You know, I think he's just got this pretty unique personality. One thing I also think in terms of that's not relevant to us, but is, you know, is, and we've seen this with Bored Apes and we've seen this with Frank. There are a lot of people who really dislike it and a lot of people who just live and breathe it. I think in both cases, to the rest of the world, seeing what luxury products for 25 to 35-year-old crypto bros look like is very disorienting. You know, we're very used to Chanel bags being luxury products. We are not used to 30-year-old men putting half their wealth in a Bored Ape. But there is something to these guys who get it and who like have figured out this demographic that they've just been immensely successful. So those are some of the things I think. The other thing is that I think he gets that this is all about his users. You know, so he's always thanking holders. He's saying like, the only reason I'm here is for my holders. And there's actually been a little debate, you know, doodles are out there saying the way we get big is by using credit cards and reaching out to $1 billion. Whereas Frank has said on the record a bunch of times, like the way we get big is by making the people who are here love us and talk about us and just be our biggest advocates nonstop. And I think they're both interesting viewpoints, but I do think they sit kind of at opposite ends of each other. And you know, and I think there's validity to both, you know, and different strategies can work as long as you execute them well. But I don't know. Those are some of my thoughts.
It's good stuff. Let's keep our finger on the pulse here. I think I think the thing I'm most curious about with DeGods and Utes is the types of product building that Frank wants, like his ambition around like where he wants to take these projects. I think the thing that I think Proof and Moonbirds has done spectacularly well over the last 6 weeks is articulate very clearly, this is where we're going, and start to release some of like the hard work you guys have been doing behind the scenes around that early product building. And I would say the thing that Frank has done it particularly well with Utes and DeGods is articulate like the vibes or like the resonance that people should have with the project, but not the inverse, which is like how he plans, like his ambition around where to take these products over time. And so I think the thing for us to keep an eye on here as we continue to monitor the evolution of the space is like where he goes with this, because he's done an amazing job building a very strong, sticky brand around these things. And it'll be fun to see where he wants to take that. But we gotta keep moving here. I know we're running out of time. Eli, I'm gonna kick it to you real quick. You want to chat for a few minutes about Proof Presents and Kristian Stoveland?
Yeah, for sure. So just for a moment, it's really Sam who interviewed Per Kristian Stoveland, the artist behind Harvest, or The Harvest, Art Block's curated project. I think we're going to kick to a live short from that interview that Sam did. Mao, do you want to run that?
I started on The Harvest kind of just testing out some ideas and got the idea of the beams. I started evolving, iterating over that, and then at some point I started to see the big picture of the collection. The story about an entity that has some kind of immortality but has to sustain it in some way. Extracting resources from the landscape. I wanted it to be special for a person to receive a print from The Harvest and know that there will never exist any other like this one.
Damn. I love that project. I actually, we bought some Harvests at Flamingo. And so I didn't go in to pick up any of those, but every time I see one, I'm like, man, I really need to go back and pick one of those up. Cause God, that project's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And just quickly, I misspoke before. Oh, go ahead, Sam. No, I misspoke before. Go ahead.
Let's go. Fight it out. Eli, you're up.
Okay.
You're up, Eli.
I misspoke before Per Kristian Stoveland. Apologies for the last name pronunciation before. Sam, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I actually misspoke on my intro to this podcast, which sometimes I listen to after I'm like, damn, I got that wrong. The Harvest did more volume in its first 6 hours than any of the prior curated art blocks had done over their entire lifetime. So this was, you can just see in that this was a project that a lot of people really resonated with. And for me, I own one. I live in the mountains, right? And I saw in this, I was like, this is really cool art that combines mountains and landscape with really fun color that I could picture putting on my wall and my wife liking. And then when I talked to him in this podcast, the whole idea was for this to be a fantasy story. It was about his love of fantasy, and he created this world, as he kind of touched on in that. But what's cool about it is that it works for both. He created this art with a certain intention, and then you have people like me who have zero interest in science fiction as a genre. That's just not my personality or not my past, and I still saw something in it that I really resonated with. So I thought he'd be a really fun guy to get on the podcast. And the other thing that's interesting about this podcast is he calls himself an introvert, but he's also someone who has been out there tweeting in public, talking about his work. He says he has to push through it, and I thought that was an interesting context, because I've talked about this idea of building in public, building a community, and a lot of artists ping me or comment on my tweets saying, not for me, I'm an introvert. This doesn't work for me. So I thought it was interesting to get him on the show and see how he's made both of those things work and been a successful generative artist,
Cool.
With,
well, we'll have to all check that out. I'm looking forward to viewing that interview. Sam, thanks for putting that together. And Mal, thanks for, I'm loving these live edits in the middle of the live show. It's just pretty sweet cutting that we got in the LA studio.
I'm going to say this too. Sorry, I know we're a little late here. Is that Mao is so good at this stuff, and Mao's team. Yeah. I think for any artist to have Mao come in and do a 1-minute thing about your work or 1 minute short about your work, I think it just beautifies. It makes the story so beautiful, and it combines narrative with art so well. So hats off to his team.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And CT and Gabby. Quickly. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Corporate Trash and Gabby as well. Gabby's our editor. Who?
Dude, they're the best. They got the squad at Proof is just killer. What were you gonna say, Eli?
Yeah, sorry, we keep talking over each other. Quickly.
Anyway, moving on. I don't want to hear what you have to say.
Yuko in the chat is asking, why are we talking about the Harvest? Why are we showing this little clip? There's a full interview that Sam did on the YouTube channel earlier this week. So go check that out. Sam, I love hearing you talk to such outstanding artists. So yes, Yuko, go make sure to check out the full interview on the YouTube channel. But let's keep it moving. I love this segment that we're about to do, which is the 1 ETH digital art picks. So each chose one project more or less. Derek, I'm going to kick it to you. What did you choose? I'm going to share my screen so we can see it.
Yes. So this week on Art Blocks Curated, Kim Asendorf released Cargo. It's 1,000 generative art collection. Are you able to pull it up? Here we go. Yeah. So this is on the artblocks.io website. A very, very cool dynamic piece. I'll talk a little bit about Kim. In fairness, when I picked this, it was like 0.25 or 0.3 ETH. I think it's now up to around 0.7. We're still under the 1 ETH mark. But Kim is a German visual artist, often uses generative systems to create abstract animations, images, and sculptures. The thing about Kim and Kim's past work is his relentless focus on the pixel. So Kim grew up in the 80s, was incredibly inspired by Nintendo and early internet art, and he world builds around pixels as like the core atomic unit of the work and the generative work that he creates. The cool thing about Cargo, and one of the things I love about this piece, is that it's responsive. There's no fixed resolution. There's no aspect ratio. The piece itself can fill any screen to use all available pixels, which is inspired by Kim's love of screensaver art. And so you can see it here. This is the cargo.cx website that Kim built. But if you click on the art, we don't want to kill Eli's machine on this live broadcast. But if you click on the art, you'll see it expand to fit the entire browser. without diminishing the resolution. And so the work itself has been constructed to kind of like work with any hardware constraints, which is just like a very brilliant way of thinking about the medium of digital art and generative art and playing with the constraints that you have or each collector has to view the work. So I love this work. I'm really excited about it. I think visually striking. I'm just also a lover of like, early 80s and 90s pixel based art. And Kim has just been a pioneer around a lot of these pieces. Very striking use of color in a lot of them. And there are, I think, a statistically rare group that enjoy a white background. I think there's maybe like 10 or 11 or 12 of them. But most are predominantly color or black or gray. So very, very fun project. Yeah. I'm pretty excited, enthusiastic about this one. And from my understanding, it's also one of the larger Art Blocks curated collections to be released lately. They've really been focusing on edition sizes that are closer to 300, 400, 500. And Kim created what I consider to be an incredibly versatile generative collection that leans into diversity in large numbers while also still feeling very cohesive and striking and special. So this is my pick, my one ETH art pick. We're still under an ETH, and this is my pick of the week. What do you guys got?
I love it. Just to quickly react to this, I mean, I've been a longtime fan of Kim's. Derek, and I don't want to go too long, but this minted out at I think 0.24, which was perhaps I think that's lowest right. We've seen something. Yeah, that might be the lowest ever. I don't know. It's low for a curated project. It's doing well on secondary, but just curious for your thoughts on was it supply size that maybe pushed it down a little bit? OTM in the chat had a question about that.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I think for sure it was, I think like from a macro perspective, and Sam can speak very articulately about this, it's just we're not seeing a ton of bids right now around digital objects or around most digital assets. And so we've seen somewhat of a trending down in terms of just the enthusiasm to collect in primary as a result. The volumes are just like a little bit lower than what we've seen in the past when Art Blocks curated drops drop. And so I would say that's the first point I'd want to make. The second is, the collection size, like you mentioned, is larger than the last few. And I think the consuming market was probably just trying to grok and understand and get a feel for the diversity in the collection size before starting to kind of, move in with size or see all the available outputs. And so what I think we saw in its move out, minting out at 0.24, 0.25, moving up to 0.5, 0.6, 0.7 to where we're at today is the market having a chance to digest the full collection and then people coming in and being able to pick up the ones that they like. The last thing I'll say, which I thought was such a great experience, is Art Blocks for this drop and for previous drops have it so that where even if you buy in the primary at, let's say you spend 1 ETH and this ends up falling to 0.24 ETH, you can now refund the delta between what you bid to buy your generative output in the primary and where the final settling clearing price is. And so I bid on a few, I think 2 or 3 in the primary between the clearing price of 0.24 and 0.75 or 0.8 ETH. And I was able right after the drop to see my mints and also refund the difference between what I had spent in the primary and where the final resting price of the mint was, which is a brilliant technical feature that Art Blocks has introduced. And I'm not saying that informed the price in what in any direction, but it was nice to know that there, even if there was, a gas war, that I could get my pieces and then also refund the delta once it finally settled at its resting price. So enthusiastic about the Art Block side and the contract work that they've been pushing out from a technology perspective. Enthusiastic about Kim and Kim's work and this piece and Kim's body of work. The composition of the piece itself is so interesting. So this is my one ETH pick, and I'm sticking to it.
I love it. All right, let's keep it moving. But as a segue, I'm going to go quickly. I'm going to do 2. So very quickly, we have Doppelganger. You guys can see this okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So just to quickly call this out, this was a project for quantum key holders, and this was a collaboration between Justin Aversano and Kim Assendorf. So Justin's sort of base photography overlaid or combined with Kim's pixel sorting algorithm. So I thought kind of fun to call this one out. 0.33 at the moment, so some good opportunities here, I think. I have one maybe that I've had since mint. But quite a cool collection and an interesting way to take some base images and add some diversity and uniqueness to each one. Okay, but for
I like this collection. I just want to say I do love this collection. I have a soft spot for this collection, and also I just, I'm a huge fan of Justin and Justin's work. So I just want to double click and say I think I own one of these pieces as well, and it's a very fun collection.
Yeah. I don't know if that's going to load. Okay, yeah, I mean, I love these. Does that look a little bit like me? Maybe. Okay, so all right. So my pick is something called Deep Black AI. So this came across my radar, as many things do, because I was following Coldy, and so artists and following artists on Twitter is, for me, one of the best ways to find new and very old art. And he posted something, I don't think I have it up, but a tweet in the last couple of weeks referring back to a piece that he had minted back in the day from Deep Black. So you can see it here. Deep Black is the first example of an AI artist creating, curating, and releasing artwork on the Ethereum blockchain with no human interaction. So there's just over 3,000 pieces in this collection. You can see it here. It's just making it under
just a hair underneath, dude. You followed the rules.
Yeah, that's right. Now, the actual outputs themselves, there's some, they're maybe not my favorite aesthetically and visually. If I was simply going across that dimension in terms of purchasing, I might look elsewhere. But in terms of historical significance, in a world where AI eats the world, so to speak, some of these very early representations of being able to create artwork with no human interaction, end to end, tokenized, I think are really interesting. If you look at the recent sales here, Seed Phrase has been buying these up. He bought a few the other day. I think maybe another 10, 15 days before that, he bought a couple. And cool. Like the holder base here is really interesting. So this is one where I'm going to probably watch it, and I own none at the moment, but I'll probably watch this and not buy, and then it'll be 2-3 ETH before I know it. Not financial advice, of course, but this is kind of an interesting one. And this is, Derek, you and I have had a lot of back and forth over the many months now. We both love so-called digging in the crates and some of these hidden gems.
Is a crate. Found a cool crate
here.
This
is a fun one. Yeah, this is a fun one.
Cool. I'm excited to look into this a little bit more. I need to kind of wrap my head around exactly the timing around this. So this was minted in 2018 or 2019?
So this was conceived in 2018, minted in 2019. Cool. And likewise, like I need to spend more time on this too, but sort of given the collector base, Coldy, and sort of the top line dimensions here, pretty interesting and worth probably a deeper dive. But just making it under the 1 ETH because we have one sale.
It, dude. There's one for one under 1 ETH, dude. You did it. So someone listening to this will benefit. Cool, man. This is a great one. Cool pick.
So if I buy that one right now, is Eli disqualified?
He's disqualified. He's gonna have to find a new one.
This is the one.
Yeah, so I'll go quick because we're out of time. But I mean, the one I had Rope Renisto on the podcast, and I think he's quite well known at this point for life in West America. And he's part of this fellowship pass, this fellowship patron pass, which I think is about 0.4 ETH right now. I don't know if that, if you look at where the floor is at. Oh wow, it's up a little bit. But what I what I like about this is, one, it sort of gives you access to Rope's next drop, which is very similar to Life in West America in look and feel, but goes much more into like society issues. Life in West America, he says every person who you see in that thinks that they are the center of the universe. And I think when you go look at that project with that in mind, you kind of see it, you see what he's saying, whereas with Life in West America, it's more like bigger picture societal issues that he's trying to get at. But the mechanism by which you get one is you're only allowed to bid on that project on Reworld, this coming one, above 4 ETH if you have the pass. Now, I don't think this thing settles above 4 ETH. So I'm not, but it is one of those auctions where you get the rebate if it prices wherever it does. The second piece is that you get to buy, there's a series of 10,000, 100 or 10 different artists all in. It's a collection of 1,000, and you get, as a holder of these passes, you get to mint those at 0.1 versus the rest of the world at 0.2. And I think what I love about Rope Renisto's work is it's AI. It's like very clearly AI, but it also feels relatable and it transports the viewer to a place. And I think all 10 of the artists that they've curated for this, and you should go to postphotography.xyz, all 10 of the artists, just when I look at this art, I think this is the type of work that's only possible with AI. And at the same time is very relatable, very ownable. The styles are very ownable by the artist. And I just really enjoyed looking at that. That doesn't mean these passes, I believe, tend not to be great buys in general. But I think those two pieces of this and the art you're going to get as a result of it, like either way, just feels like stuff that could be enjoyable to own. So that was kind of the one that came to mind for me.
This is cool. I like it.
Yeah. This is cool.
Go to postphotography.xyz though, because that's where you really see. And if you look at the gallery, and I did a tweet. I highlighted 4 of these artists, the ones that I identified with. Like it's just really cool work. So, and we'll probably see more and more artists like this. It'll be interesting to see if it's with the emergence of more and more people who are good at this, who's able to stand out. I think that's something that's always hard to predict at the beginning of a movement, but we'll see.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I feel like we had some good picks today. I know we're running out of time here. Thanks for watching us live, everyone. This has been a fun experiment to do this one live. I think that is the plan, to keep these going, to record these on Friday live for in the studio, and when we're not in the studio, remote, like the 3 of us are doing now. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Sam gave the good word on all of the single place to figure out where all of the good stuff coming out of Proof is happening. Is that Proof Podcasts on Twitter? Is that the handle, Sam?
Plural, yeah. Proof Podcasts with an S.
Awesome. Well, cool. Sam, Eli, as always, great show, and stoked to see you guys in New York here pretty soon.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. New York will be great. We've got the curated exhibition opening on the 12th, Beeple event. Going to be great to see you guys. And minting for the curated exhibition opens on the 12th as well. So busy couple of weeks. It's going to be super fun.
We got to end this where we started, because everyone's been sitting around for an hour wanting to know the answer to one question. Eli, you're from Toronto. Why are you staying at a hotel in Toronto? Is there something you should know? Let's go.
Busted.
The truth is, or do I want to give you the truth or make something up? No, the truth is I live like 2 hours outside of the city. So got in late last night and posted up here for a couple of days to do some things in the city. But for you folks over there, I just say I live in Toronto.
Lesson here is that Eli folds under pressure and tells the real truth when on live camera. Yeah, good to know.
I'm too honest. Just to give people a little behind the scenes, before we hop on these shows, I always challenge Derek and Sam for hot takes. I'm going to take them down. We're going to do that. And then I'm a big softie on camera.
It's true. It's all good. One of these days, we're just going to have to come hot takes only and just duel it out. And I think give the people what they really want to see.
I gave you behind the scenes conversations on my founder from 2011. So try to keep it a little.
There you go. There you go. We'll have to keep up. All right, gang. Good show. We'll catch you guys soon.
Okay. Talk soon, guys.
Take care.